gentlemen, welcome to one of BMW Motorrad's latest sub-500cc motorcycles in the Indian two-wheeler market, the G310 GS. Now, it's only been about 3 weeks the G310R and the GS were launched in our market, and the two have registered over 1,000 bookings. Well, what's worth noticing here is that the ADV has accounted for most of these bookings. So why is that happening? Well, we are at the perfect location to find out. Adventure motorcycles under 500cc are quite new in India. And the G310 GS clearly delivers on the new. Well, it gets a traditional ADV silhouette with a sharp beak up front and a tall stance so that you can be up on the foot pegs and take on off-road sections with ease. BMW Motorrad's GS family is rather quite popular with riders who indulge in touring and off-road riding. The G310 GS also gets its design and styling from its elder GS siblings. It gets raised suspension and it has mounts for panniers at the back. So, well, it's meant to do touring, and that's what you're supposed to do on this. The G310 GS is also powered by the same engine that comes mounted on the G310R, which is a 313cc single cylinder and was developed in collaboration with TVS Motor Company and BMW Motorrad. While the power figures are the same, 34 bhp and 28 Newton meters of torque, but there are differences between the ADV and the Street Fighter, which is the GS and the R. For starters, there are slight changes in the gear ratios for both of them. Well, this is an adventure touring motorcycle, so you need the power band to be slightly different, a little less nippier, a little less eager than a Street Fighter. I am told that the first and the sixth gear are slightly taller on the G310 GS because it's meant for touring, so that, well, I was just in talks with the test rider here, and he told me that he's done in the sixth gear from 38 kilometers an hour to 140. Now that tells us that the sixth gear is rather quite tall, and it will ensure a comfortable ride while you're touring long distances. The other major difference between the G310 GS and the R, besides the design and styling and the fact that we know that one's an ADV and the other is a Street Fighter, are the tires. The G310 GS gets a 19-inch up front and a 17 at the back compared to a 17-17 setup for the G310R. Now this is a better setup for an adventure touring motorcycles because you will be taking it off-road and you will be standing up on the foot pegs, leaning slightly forwards and expecting a lot of jerks up front. And a larger wheel up front will give you better stability. Not just the size of the wheels, the tires are also different on the two motorcycles. For example, at the rear, the G310R gets a rounder profile compared to the GS. The GS gets something wider and knobby, of course, for off-road sections, and it gives a greater contact patch, so there's better control, while a rounder profile will give you better opportunities for more lean angles, which you can expect on the G310R. Now let's get to the ride quality of the G310 GS, and I'm truly happy with it. Well, today we've ridden it on tarmac, on loose gravel, on what you see around here right now. Well, the suspension setup is quite plush. There's enough travel in the suspension, telescopic forks up front, monoshock at the back. The combination is rather quite well balanced. A wide, comfortable seat. The riding stance is, well, it's an ADV, you're sitting upright. And for off-road bits, you can stand on the foot pegs, and it is promising motorcycle when it comes to comfort. I would love to take this on long distance riding. Braking is handled by a 300mm disc up front, a 240 at the back, and it gets dual channel ABS on both the wheels. For the ADV, for the G310 GS, there is a small button on the left of your handlebar, and you can switch off the ABS on the rear wheel, which is something that you'd want to do when you're off-roading. well, what ABS does is it prevents your wheel from locking up under instant braking. Now, when you're off-roading, what this setup will do, it will keep the dual channel ABS running on the front wheel, but not at the back one. So you can expect some locks at the back, so you can slide and slip about on it. Well, if you are into more spirited riding on off-road sections. So the seat height on the G310 GS, well, I was afraid I would be, well, a bit short for it, but about 835 mm. So if you're 5'5" like me, you will be fine, slightly tiptoeing, but nonetheless, you will be comfortable on the bike. It weighs about 170 kilograms. So handling it, pulling it out of the parking, or well, if you're slightly losing balance and you have to lift it back up, well, all easy. It is a very well-proportioned bike. The weight distribution on either ends is done brilliantly, and I think in my opinion, this is a great motorcycle to get into, to step into adventure riding. Having ridden it at different kinds of surfaces today, tarmac, loose gravel, loose sand, I'm quite convinced this is rather a promising package. When we were on the highway, this motorcycle goes, it's rather quite quick off the line for an ADV, and well, you might underestimate the engine note when it's idling, but once you rev it good, the single cylinder engine sounds quite nice. The power, I'd say, is quite appropriate. The entire package with the suspension setup and the braking and the ABS on both the wheels. Well, this is a motorcycle that can very well allow you to get into adventure riding motorcycles. If you haven't been riding off-road yet, this might be the perfect way of doing it. At 3.49 lakh ex-showroom Delhi, well, the G310 GS currently does not have a very direct competition. The other one is the Kawasaki Versys X300, but the price tag on that motorcycle is quite higher than this one. All of these factors combined quite explain why most of the 1,000 bookings were for the G310 GS, why most of the buyers were inclined for the ADV, and many more will be perhaps in the future as well. Head over to our first ride review of the BMW G310R for everything you need to know about BMW Motorrad's most affordable motorcycle in the Indian two-wheeler market. For more news and reviews and anything and everything automobile related, log on to www.expressdrives.com. Thank you very much for watching.